opportunities for Pakistani students in Canada after the introduction of SDS. Today's discussion would be focused on the opportunities that Canada offers for Pakistani students, whether they are interested in science, humanities, engineering, computer science, or other fields. We have a galaxy of brilliant panelists. I shall introduce each of them at the time of giving them floor. Ladies and gentlemen, Canada is currently the third largest market for international students. Major factors which have made Canada a favorite destination are well known, and these include the high quality of education, open and welcoming Canadian society, and permission for students to work part-time. Keeping all this in mind, we are going to aim at a focused discussion on creating awareness among Pakistani students and parents of the benefits of Canadian education. It's a common knowledge that in spite of its large population and a significant percentage of Pakistani students fluent in English language, Pakistan is not among the first 15 countries which are sending their students to Canadian universities. Several initiatives have been taken to address this issue, and the inclusion of Pakistan in SDS is one of them. However, due to a variety of factors like high tuition fee, COVID-19, visa processing time, and the lack of awareness among Pakistani applicants about the Canadian education system, the number of Pakistani students in Canada has not increased in the last 2 years. Before initiating the discussion, I want to clarify a couple of things. The focus of today's program is on education and not immigration. The focus of today's program is on education and not immigration, period. We are not here to give immigration-related advice. It's a job of different kind of professionals. Still, we have got at least 2 panelists who hold immigration practitioner diploma and are regulated Canadian immigration consultants. Educational linkage is an important area of diplomatic activity, and we shall hold this discussion in this perspective. Similarly, we are not here to discuss the number of students of other countries. We may refer to some best practices, but our sharp focus will be on Pakistan and the number of its students in Canada and how to increase them. As the target audience are Pakistani students and their parents, इसलिए मैं ये कहूँगा कि हम इंग्लिश और उर्दू दोनों में बात कर सकते हैं, जिस जुबान में भी आप कंफर्टेबल फील करें. जो अब मजीद डिटेल है इस डिस्कशन की वो मैं पैनलिस्ट पे छोड़ूंगा. विदाउट मच अडू मैं अब शुरू करूंगा डिस्कशन. हर पैनलिस्ट के लिए 6 से 8 मिनट हैं. ये खास तौर पे मैं रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा कि हम अपने वक्त का ख्याल रखें, क्योंकि हमारे जो पैनलिस्ट पाकिस्तान में बेस्ड हैं उनका ये डिनर का टाइम है और हमें उनको ज्यादा बॉदर नहीं करना चाहिए. सबसे पहले मैं हाई कमिश्नर अमीर खुर्रम राठौर साहब को ओपनिंग रिमार्क्स के लिए दावत दूंगा. वो पाकिस्तान के सबसे सीनियर डिप्लोमेट्स में से हैं, जो फॉरेन सर्विस में 1993 में ज्वाइन किया उन्होंने. इससे पहले यूएई, मलेशिया, थाईलैंड और जर्मनी में बड़ी नुमाया खिदमत सर अंजाम दे चुके हैं मुल्क के लिए. अभी यहाँ आने से पहले वो मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ फॉरेन अफेयर्स में एडिशनल फॉरेन सेक्रेटरी थी. ओवर टू यू हाई कमिश्नर अमीर खुर्रम राठौर.
बहुत शुक्रिया भुट्टा साहब. Thank you very much, dear participants. I'm grateful for the efforts of Bhutta Saab, Atiya, Bhattu Saab, the whole team, which managed, जिन्होंने आज का जो event है वो organize किया. This is first of the kind event जो कि हमने जो कोशिश की है आज के प्रोग्राम की. भुट्टा साहब ने मुख्तसरन सारी बात तो आपको मुद्दा तो बयान कर दिया जो हमारे आज के इवेंट का the basic purpose. Let me just reiterate the idea in a few words, और उसके बाद then I'll give the floor to the worthy participants. SDS के बाद we had hope कि हमारे जो students जो कनाडा में आना चाहेंगे उनकी तादाद में एक सब्सटेंशियल होगा. It's been 2 years, लेकिन ऐसी ने कोई रिमार्केबल ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन नहीं देखी कि पाकिस्तान से स्टूडेंट्स की तादाद कनाडा के लिए बढ़ी हो. देयर आर मल्टीपल फैक्टर्स, भुट्टा साहब ने मेंशन भी किए, कोविड भी था, भी थी, एंड some other factors too. But इस webinar से the basic idea of this webinar is कि हम सिर्फ एक area पे focus करें, which is the lack of information for the prospective Pakistani students to Canada, and secondly to try to brainstorm, try to develop some sort of ecosystem जहाँ पे हमारे जो स्टूडेंट्स हैं पाकिस्तानी, उनको जो कनाडा में पढ़ना चाहते हैं उनको इंफॉर्मेशन भी मिले, इस भी मिले। और उस सिलसिले में आप लोगों को आज तकलीफ दी। आई एम रियली ग्रेटफुल एंड really impressed that we have such a large audience. This is not the last of the webinars. Inshallah, we'll be holding multiple webinars. We are on a learning curve, and we will try to better ourselves as much as possible. So, Bhutta Saab, over to you, sir.
Okay. Thank you. And now I invite MP Ikra Khalid for her views on this issue. She has been elected third time as MP in Canadian Parliament in 2021. Ikra Khalid has served as Member of Parliament for Mississauga Iron Mill since 2015. She is a strong advocate for women's issues and the cause of human rights, speaking out on issues such as online hate and the Rohingya genocide. She is a lawyer and immigrant. Born in Pakistan, Ikra Khalid moved to Canada with her family at a young age and grew up in Iron Mills. She studied criminology at York University and moved on to complete her degree at the University of Michigan. Before entering politics, she was raising funds for global disaster relief or building bridges between student groups at York University or working at an immigration firm. She was engaged in the diverse experiences of Canadian citizens. We are grateful to her for sparing time for this discussion, despite the fact that first session of Parliament just started yesterday. In our event, she must be very busy. Over to you, Ikra.
Thank you very much, Mr. Abdul Hamid Saab, His Excellency, the High Commissioner for Pakistan. It's my first time actually hearing you and listening to your words. Really a pleasure to have that experience. I just really want to start by thanking you, Mr. Abdul Hamid, for taking this initiative. I know how much this issue impacts and really a lot of Pakistani Canadians are passionate about. I really appreciated that you said in your opening remarks that this is about education, not immigration, which I really appreciate also. Over the past 6 years as a member of parliament, one of my focuses has been to increase the people-to-people relationship between Pakistan and Canada. That includes increasing trade. That includes, exchanging in education, in lots and lots of other ways, culture, heritage, all of the above. And over the past 5 years, we've also been trying to ensure that Pakistani Canadians are well satisfied with our immigration system. Before we took office in 2015, it was taking approximately 4 years for somebody from Pakistan to sponsor their spouse to come to Canada. And we've now reduced that time to about 12 months. In 2019, it was 2019 when our immigration minister in my constituency office, along with other esteemed members of parliament like Salma Zahid, we came together to announce that Pakistan was going to be included in the student direct stream. Now, that is one of 5 countries across the world that are on that student direct stream. And within 6 months of Pakistan being placed on that student direct stream, COVID hit, and a lot of international borders were shut down. Now, I've seen how the student direct stream has worked and not worked. And I'm really looking forward to receiving feedback from Canadians, from Pakistani Canadians, on how we can improve that system. My ultimate is that we should not be rejecting applications for students trying to come to Canada on the basis of they will not return back to their home country after completing their education, when we ourselves as a government, as a policy, have encourage students from across the world to come and to study and then to settle and actually immigrate to Canada. I think that we do need a policy shift in how we process visa applications. At the same time, we also want to make sure that the schools that are accepting students from across the world are actually credible schools. And I know that we have a bit of a problem at the provincial level in how some of these schools are operating. We want to be able to provide safety and security for students as they come to Canada and to educate themselves and also to immigrate to whichever they choose. Canada relies on healthy immigration as our labor market growth. And I think Pakistanis, especially Pakistani students, have a lot to contribute to this wonderful country. And I'm hoping that we can continue to make our efforts and ensure that there's a fair process to encourage more students from Pakistan to come and educate themselves in Canada. But that also means that there's a bit of an onus on the government of Pakistan to provide support for students that are looking for that education, to raise awareness, to provide financial support for students that can't necessarily pay for that education abroad. So, I am looking for support, and I know that Mr. Abdul Hamid and I have been having many conversations about this, and he's very, very supportive of Pakistani Canadians, as well as this whole issue of students from Pakistan. We really appreciate it. I look forward to working with you, continuing to work with you. And the last thing I'll say, I'm really hoping also that we can move visa processing back to Islamabad. Right now, it is processed in Abu Dhabi, and I think that there is a bit of an issue with the visa processing happening in Abu Dhabi. I think Islamabad is the better place for that to happen, and I will continue to advocate for and ensure that ultimately that we are able to do that. And I think that would help resolve a lot of these issues that we are facing, not only with student visas, but also with temporary resident visas, business visas, etc. So with that, I'm really looking forward to your questions, to your comments, and your suggestions on how we can improve this system. Back to you, Mr. Abdul Hamid.
Thank you. Now, before I invite Chaudhry Faisal Mushtaq, CEO, Roots Millennium School, Pakistan, for his remarks, I would just request all panelists that there is no question and answer session because we are 13 speakers already. But we are receiving so many questions. I would just read the questions, and any panelist who is comfortable with these questions, during their presentation, they can address them. And whatever the first batch of questions we have, I can just read them without replying or without responding to them. Chaudhry Talha Zafar Saab ne hame pucha hai, sir, tell me about the medical colleges in Canada. Hamza Ayub Saab ne kaha, kindly tell us about how to get PR through easy way. This is not the right forum for this question. I have done my bachelor's in Shoaib Bhatti Saab hai. I have done my bachelor's in BS Electronics and want to pursue my education in Canada. So I know SDS option, but the thing is that it requires investment of 10,000 Canadian dollars. So I want to know that is there any alternate way of applying for Canada without that GIC investment? And if I'm applying through regular channel, not through SDS, so can I use my bank statement as proof of my fund for studies? Now, we have a representative from Habib Canadian Bank. We have specially requested him to join us today, Mr. Ali Khan. Perhaps this question will go to his presentation. Nausheen Jamil Khan ne pucha, does age matters? If already have masters, can an applicant apply for the diploma? What is the process to apply? Apply to college first and then apply for the study permit and visa. My name is Aisha Javed. I'm Canadian national. I'm asking this on the behalf of my brother. He did his MPhil from Preston University, and here in Canada, organization giving EC are not accepting Preston University, although in Pakistan, ATC has attested all the documents. शायद हम अगले वेबिनार में ATC के किसी रिप्रेजेंटेटिव को भी इस काम के लिए रिक्वेस्ट करेंगे. हमारे नंबर ऑफ पैनलिस्ट ज्यादा हो गया था, तो इस वजह से हम उनको शामिल नहीं कर सके इस दफा. Does SDS program work for secondary school students? S. Sharif साहब ने पूछा है. How can we reach the panelists after this webinar? ये महमूद तारिक साहब ने पूछा है, इसका सिंपल आंसर ये है कि जो पैनलिस्ट कंफर्टेबल फील करते हैं वो अभी चैट में अपने ईमेल एड्रेसेस लिख दें, जो नहीं लिखना चाहते इट्स देयर चॉइस, इट विल बी हेल्पफुल। आखिरी क्वेश्चन एहसन फरहान साहब ने पूछा है, आई वांट टू डू पीएचडी इन क्लिनिकल साइकोलॉजी फ्रॉम कनाडा, आई गॉट 3.51 CGPA in BS and 3.61 in MS and 3-year work experience. I want to take my spouse and a 1-year child with me. Could you guide me about the process in this regard? Please solve the issue of Pakistan's study visa refusal. ये सवाल तो नहीं है, ये फरमाइश है। So now I would request Dr. Chaudhry Faisal Mushtaq sir for his remarks. He is the recipient of Tamgha Imtiaz, a former education minister and former minister for human rights, population and social welfare, minorities in Baitul Mal in the interim government of Punjab. He has been recognized as the 500 most influential Muslims of the world for 3 consecutive years by the Royal Islamic Strategic Studies Center, Jordan. He is a leading national academician, education reformer, and social entrepreneur. Dr. Chaudhry Faisal Mushtaq has also been conferred on an honorary degree of Doctor of Education by the world's leading University of Hertfordshire, United Kingdom, in recognition of his outstanding and exemplary services to education in Pakistan in September 2021. He is the founder and chairman of Roots Millennium Education Pakistan, is also the founder of and CEO of non-profit community development organization Change in Education Foundation, working in support of government and public sector education across education districts in Pakistan, thus scaling Pakistan's commitment to Sustainable Development Goals 2030. Today, yes.
Thanks, sir. I think this is enough. Thank you. Gigi, thank you.
Over to you, Doctor.
I think that, Gigi, my office has
please
overwhelmed you with the introduction. I would like to thank you very much, the Consul General and the High Commissioner and all the colleagues there in Canada. I think it's a great opportunity you have taken. The true advantage of digital inclusion. One of the learning outcomes of post-COVID era is that we need to be digitally inclusive. So, can you hear me?
Yes.
So this webinar is part of that digital commitment, and it gives rise to the new digital citizens contract. The challenge that I see as a grassroots educationist here in Pakistan, the Canadian university application ecosystem is lacking in Pakistan. If you look at the models if you look at the United States education model, it's called Education USA, and then they work through the United States Education Foundation all across the country. The foundations are linked to the embassies, and they have very structured activities, both for the promotion of language, culture, higher education, research, and knowledge and health. Similarly, the British bureaucracy works through the British Council, and it's a very well-established educational non-profit entity, works with government, school districts, and communities across the world. And over the last 10 years, we have seen the Hanban. It is the Chinese Institute for Language, Culture, and Arts Promotion. It's called the House of Language, Hanban. So through Hanban, through British Council, through the United States Education Foundation, and the Germans, they have their DARD organization. It's the German Higher Education and Education Promotion Organization. And what we do not see in the case of Canada, in Pakistan, the only scalable application center is Ontario University Application Center, OUAC. When students at the O levels and A levels and the metric and FSC level, when they are doing college applications. Now, let me remind you that some of my colleagues will also share with you, counseling, coaching, and mentoring has become part of the mainstream Pakistan. A lot of people will say, no, this is only in fashion in rich urban elite schools, but not anymore. Counseling, coaching, mentoring is picking up scale. Of course, it's not there. It's not available in the public sector or in the rural schools. However, in the mainstream cities. Now, when students are going through the process of college applications, university deadlines, commitment, essays, personal statements, there is no mention of or no access to the Canadian university application system. Mainly families and students have linked Canadian university application to immigrations. So where I have seen from my 20 years of experience, I have seen all the upper middle class family backgrounds. Wherever the families, they have an immigration mindset, they say, okay, son or daughter, why don't you apply to Canada? For one. Number two, the visa regime for Canada is very tough and is not flexible. Number three, the visa processing delays and timelines is also, it's like the Honorable Member of Parliament said, it is being processed through the Abu Dhabi regime. And now with you being on the SDS route, I do, however, see we have to create through the Australian government an enabling access and ecosystem which is inclusive of equal opportunity within Pakistan.
You mean Canadian government, sir?
So what the primary responsibility is theirs to promote education in their country. What you guys are doing is a step forward. You are taking an extended responsibility through this webinar and discussion. Of course, for all the right reasons in support of a national quest for being more globally inclusive in the research and the knowledge economy. What you are doing through this webinar is unprecedented. But historically and academically speaking, it was the government's responsibility to scale the opportunity for students to study. And I must say, we have to create now, if the government of Pakistan is taking the lead on this, then we need to have a Canadian opportunity education fairs at the school and the college level. There has to be a whole team. It could be through the Department of Trade and Investment, or possibly it could be with some other higher education organization. We need to see linkages and partnerships in higher education. We need to see linkages in research, but we need to see genuine student recruitment scalability. Students and families, they have the disposable income to study in Canada. When people say the Canadian education is expensive, I disagree. I have seen in Pakistan, our parents, they save money for three things. They save money for Hajj and Umrah, they save money for their children's education, and they save money for their higher education. Our parents do not go on holidays. That's their entire saving. So higher education saving is always there. It's just that there is no enabling voice and there is no accessible and an approachable platform. So we, as the government, if you have taken this initiative, as the private sector, we welcome the opportunity. Why should I put you under pressure? So our education system and group, 100 schools across the country, we will give you the opportunity to share all the collateral and information. We will disseminate it to our students. We will share it on our social media platforms, on our apps, on our HTML communications. So we will support, because we also feel that Canada is a genuine educational opportunity, and the experiences that our students they have had studying in Canada, they are very good. They feel that Canadian society is very friendly, is very diverse, it is very inclusive, and a lot of students, our alumni, they tell us that there are lots of opportunity for incubation, for entrepreneurship, and for employability. So as a bottom line, I think that there is a lot of space for Pakistani education, Pakistani students to scale applications. However, the system and the ecosystem.
Thank you very much. Excellent points. More education fairs, more a focus on research and education and exchange programs. Canadian education is not so expensive for Pakistani parents because they have specially reserved some certain amount of savings for it. Enabling voice, enabling ecosystem is needed. And best offer was that private sector is ready to support public sector efforts in this respect. Perhaps the first step would be that Roots and other school system and other our colleagues who are joining us today from Pakistan, they circulate the recording of this webinar through social media, through their channels. And now I go back to our panelists. I must say that I feel that Our panelists based in Pakistan are with us despite the late hour in Pakistan. In Canada, these are working hours. So leaving all consideration aside, I shall invite our Pakistan-based panelists first and Canada-based panelists later. So now I shall request Mr. Faisal Azim, he is MD Global University System, to express his views on the prospects of Pakistani students' education in Canada. Faisal Azim is the managing partner of Bridge and Gate Education Consultants, as well as the managing director at Global University Systems for their Pakistan office. Colleagues, you have long CVs. I will not read all, and it will save time. Over to Faisal Azim.
Thank you very much, Abdul Hamid Saab. Thank you very much, High Commissioner, for this opportunity. Whilst I totally agree with Dr. Faisal Mushtaq, we've been colleagues in the industry for very long. I think the point of concern or the reason why Canada hasn't picked up as a favorite destination, I think there are two reasons. First reason, which Dr. Faisal highlighted, is educational marketing, which I think a lot of Canadian institutes haven't delivered to the expectation. And I think there is another psychological reason why Canada hasn't been a favorite destination, and that is our tradition and our history. The founders of Pakistan went to the UK for their studies. Quaid-e-Azam went to the UK. Lama Iqbal and even the Prime Minister, the current Prime Minister, went to the UK. So it is in our national sort of chemistry that we think that UK is our destination because everyone goes there. And the UK has been very proactive, not just the British Council, but also the Higher Education Commission of Pakistan. You must be aware, in 2018, there was a high-profile collaboration between Pakistan and the British government. It is titled as Pak UK Education Gateway. And that provided a lot of leverage and platform to British universities to come and work in Pakistan. So I think in addition to the educational marketing, I think that there has to be a lot of profile building for Canada as a destination. And what makes it more complicated, despite the fact a lot of students get interested, is the visa regime. When SDS came out, everybody was excited. We understand there was a period when the COVID hit and there was a stream of students who were unable to travel. But I think what happened after the COVID, when embassies opened up and when the students started mobilizing, I think the visa success rate is one thing. I think the visa processing time increased so tremendously that for a variety of Canadian universities, students were unable to pick a certain intake. So they were aiming at September and they were waiting for visa, and all of a sudden they find out the intake dates are over and they still don't have the visa. So SDS was supposed to promise a processing time as well as a success rate, and I think it hasn't delivered both. I would request Ikra Khalid to look at it from a policy and from a government point of view. The other thing which Canadian institutes haven't done is the collaborations and partnerships. A lot of UK universities, I'm drawing comparison because I belong to an education group that has 25 institutions in the UK, in Canada, US, Germany, Singapore, etc. So I've seen the behavior of UK institutions, whereas the Canadian institutions. The UK institutions have always been into collaborations, academic partnerships, articulation agreements, accreditation partnerships with the local universities. And that was another reason why students were finding UK a better and a more convenient destination compared to the Canada. So I think a lot of work needs to be done on the collaboration side. The third thing that I feel is very important is the delivery of transnational education. A lot of universities from the UK teach their programs in Pakistan, at least at foundation level. So students get their foundation level qualifications, studying at good schools and institutions like the Millennium Universal College. And then they have an option to take a step out of the country and find their destination in the home university. That is not happening for Canada and Pakistan, right? And last but not the least, and it's more of a natural issue rather than anything to do with the strategy, is online education, right? And it's the timing difference. A lot of students who want to study in Canada and start an online program cannot do so because of the timing difference. We had some students who were studying at one of our universities, University Canada West, but the classes were starting like 10 a.m. and going up to all the way to 3 a.m. So even that is a big challenge. So I think international collaboration, as well as educational marketing, as well as portraying or driving Canada as a destination, not just the UK, but Canada, I think these are some of the steps that will increase the demand. And to cater that demand, I think there are some policy changes needed from a visa processing point of view, the timing and the success rate. I really like your idea about moving visa processing from Abu Dhabi to Pakistan. We know from the fact that we have a lot of students going to Canada that when Abu Dhabi is up to its capacity, some applications go to Poland, I think, for processing. That not only adds a lot of time to visa processing, but also impacts the visa success rate. Pakistan students and our education system and our society has some certain dynamics and features which would be a Pakistani visa processor or someone who's based in Pakistan would be able to relate to. So I think that will be a very good sort of a policy move. And my last point is about the 6 institutions we have in Canada. So we have institutions in Vancouver, Montreal, and Toronto, 6 institutions, including a language institution. We recruit from Pakistan through a variety of channels, right? What I have found students most scared of is not the investment, it's not Canada being very far away, is actually the language barrier. People, I don't know why students are so scared of attempting the IELTS exam. So perhaps that is something that needs to be taken care of by the education board. I know schools like TNUC are doing an excellent job in building the communication skills, but I think there should be some messaging about IELTS exam, and it's not a monster and shouldn't be scared of it. That needs to happen. And if we could fix these variables, I think Canada will automatically become a great destination, and we will increase our, I was reading a report that there are about 1 billion worth of bilateral agreements between the two countries. And I think that can increase by exporting students, by charging fee and letting students settle in Canada. There are over 250,000 Pakistani settled in Canada. That number should increase further as well. And I think we have the right talent, the right kids, the right social fabric to go and settle there and build the image of Pakistan for all of us. Thanks again for the opportunity. I'll be happy to share my email address for any further questions.
थैंक यू फैसल साहब, ये बहुत हार्टनिंग था आपका सुनना, क्योंकि जब भी हम यहाँ पे बात करते हैं तो आमतौर पे ये होता है कि these are the things that Pakistan is not doing. तो अभी हमने आपसे ये भी सुना कि एजुकेशनल लिंकेजेस के लिए कैनेडियन सिस्टम को एजुकेशनल मार्केटिंग इंप्रूव करनी चाहिए, हमें एज डिप्लोमेट्स जो एक्सचेंज प्रोग्राम्स और इदारों के दरमियान MOUs हैं वो करवाने चाहिए एजुकेशनल इंस्टीट्यूशंस के दरमियान. अभी हमने रिसेंटली ब्रॉक यूनिवर्सिटी और कराची की एक यूनिवर्सिटी के दरमियान करवाया. उसमें वो बहुत अच्छा 2+2 का है कि आप 2 साल वहां पढ़ें और 2 साल यहाँ पढ़ें. और इसी तरह जो हमारे लोग वहां से जिनके बच्चे आते हैं और उनके क्रेडिट स्कोर को ट्रांसफर करने का इश्यू होता है, वो MOU कवर करता है. तो उस तरह के भी काम वो साथ साथ हो रहे हैं और वो इसका हिस्सा है. हम किसी वेबिनार में उसको भी कवर करेंगे. थैंक यू वेरी मच. और अब हम आखिरी जो पाकिस्तान से हमारे पैनलिस्ट हैं शमस अहमद साहब, उनको इनवाइट करेंगे. He is CEO at Folio International Education Consultant. His annual recruitment to Canadian universities and colleges is 200+. His company has successfully placed more than 500 students in various Canadian institutions. Their head office is in Karachi. Over to Shams Ahmed sir.
Hello and everyone. Thank you so much for this great opportunity, His Excellency and the Consulate General and everyone for coordinating. So I would like to begin on for this session and say a few things about what we are doing in general in Pakistan, and also trying to help the students in applying for the right institution, and also making their profiles right in terms of the visa processing as well. So I firstly I would like to say that we are doing things on the very initial basis for the students, like helping out according to the Pakistani system. What is being done by us is we are introducing the Ontario Secondary School Diploma program in Pakistan, and that's going to happen very soon. So what happens if a student, because there are several systems being run in Pakistan at the moment, for example, the British system, the local system, and if on OSSD, Ontario Secondary School Diploma, is also introduced over here, then obviously this will help students to sort of complete the requirement to study their programs in Canada. That's number one. Secondly, according to the SDS policy, because being a consultant and an education service provider, I think a lot of students do not have the kind of financial documentation required to complete their visa processing, and obviously to make their visa application impactful, right? So in my opinion, I think this is something which needs to be done by us as agents, and also a lot of other people who are filing their visas. That's number two. Number three, I think finding the right kind of program, and also trying to find the right kind of scholarship and applying it according to the deadlines. I think this connects to the kind of information Faisal Azim and Faisal Mushtaq were saying. Both of the panelists said very nicely that these things should be told to the students in a timely manner. So if we do these things, I think in a timely manner, I think we'll be able to increase the number, and also make this process a bit more effective. Other than this, I think being the representative of University of Waterloo, and getting the chance to work with one of the best Canadian institutions, I find a lot of students asking this question, that whether my visa application will be rejected or not. I'm fine. I have the admission and everything, but what about my visa application? So to those students, I think the best chance you have is to apply according to the requirements, complete your documents, and not worry about the outcome. Because, for example, I've seen this in my career as well. A lot of our students get rejected for their visa for the first time. But when we reapply after addressing all the points the embassy or the consulate makes, their visa gets approved in the second time or the third time. Obviously, the time delay is a factor, but considering all these points, I think students should take a chance, and the kind of opportunities that Canada gives, I think the students will have a great opportunity. Final point which I would like to make before handing over the podium is the kind of dilemma which is in the mindset of the students at the moment, that Canadian education comes at a very high cost. It does not. It does not. As compared to what they spend in other countries, Canadian education still cost effective. And I can vouch for that, because I know students being accepted at Trent University and several other universities, University of Saskatchewan, Manitoba. Even these institutions offer a huge amount of scholarship to the students. So I think putting up the application at the right time, knowing the requirements and what we are doing, we hold regular webinars every month, and I try and inculcate a lot of my universities, my panel institutions, the other universities, to come and speak to our students and tell them how they can effectively move to Canada, and also complete the visa application in an effective manner. So this is something which I think will create a new kind of impact in the minds of the people sitting at the embassy as well, and what the member parliament also mentioned in the session, that this is being addressed already. So I think all in all, this is a very, very good initiative, and I think it'll prove to be something as a starting point for things to be done in the future. So thank you so much, Abdul Habib Saab, and everyone for giving this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Shamus Ahmed Saab. Now I invite Mr. Ali Khan of Habib Canadian Bank. He will enlighten us on the financial aspects and the mechanism for the deposits of $10,000 as the financial security to be shown through a guaranteed investment certificate. Ali Khan is currently Vice President, Marketing and Business Development at Habib Canadian Bank. He has 15 plus years of diversified experience in the financial services industry in both retail banking and contact centers. He has previously spent time in leadership roles at RBC and Scotiabank. Over to Mr. Ali Khan.
Assalamu alaikum, and thank you very much, Mr. Hamid Saab, and thank you for having me and inviting Habib Canadian Bank to be part of this great forum. Habib Canadian Bank, we are very proud to be a provider of the Student Direct Stream GIC that fulfills the requirements of the Canadian program. And so my quick presentation today is just going to focus on how Habib Canadian Bank can be a partner to the students in Pakistan and their families as they're making the decision and the journey to come over to Canada. So in a short bit, I want to just say that Habib Canadian Bank, we've been in Canada for 20 years. Our international group, which many attendees today would be aware of, Habib Bank AG Zurich, has been around for closer to more than 50 years. And Habib Canadian Bank, we are a member of the Canadian Deposit Insurance Corporation. And I would say a lot of the topics that we've talked about in today's webinar so far, I want to highlight that Habib Canadian Bank, we place a very significant importance on assisting our clients as members of our family and our group with their banking needs. And so with the Student Direct Stream program, I've spoken to many of the students who've come to Canada from Pakistan through our bank's offering, and we would like to be seen as the partner to help students as they go through this journey. So I wanted to just share a quick message from our CEO, Mr. Muslim Hassan, he shared this quote, which I thought was very relevant to today's forum. So our goal over the last 2 decades in Canada involves developing relationships and helping our clients grow professionally and personally. And now with the Student Direct Stream program, we are proud to assist students as they consider taking the next step in coming to Canada to begin their studies. So that just kind of sums up our feeling on the Student Direct Stream program. We're very happy to partner with institutions, with students, with parents. I know when considering Canada as a destination for education, there's a lot of questions that come up in terms of banking, in terms of the actual program. Our process is very simple. It's a four-step process in getting the requirements fulfilled. I'm going to share in the chat the chat to all the attendees right now our email address as well as our website that highlights all the information on our specific program, as well as my email address. I'm happy to be contacted for any questions, concerns, or inquiries about the program. Basically, once their requirements are met in terms of the student and verifying your identity and the school that you've got acceptance to, we facilitate the requirements of the Student Direct Stream by providing the student, once you've sent over the funds, the $10,000 funds requirement, the GIC that meets the requirements of the Canadian government to issue the student direct stream visa for the student within 20 days. I know there's been some challenges in terms of, and I know I saw a lot of messages in today's chat about challenges in terms of banks in Pakistan understanding or being able to facilitate the transfer easily. We've dealt with some of those challenges. We've communicated with not only the students, but the parents and the banks. Because this is a student program and it is for funds for studies, potential studies in Canada, students should not be incurring any significant challenges. But as a bank, we are here to guide you and provide you advice and help you overcome those challenges if you do face them. So please contact us at any time. Again, I want to, some common questions that we see from students from Pakistan are my funds secure? That's a question that we often hear. Habib Canadian Bank, as well as all the banks that offer the student direct stream program, are protected, and most are protected under the Canada Deposit Insurance Corporation. So your funds are safe. And then another common question that I wanted to answer today is that what happens if the student doesn't proceed with coming to Canada right away or defers their enrollment? We've seen a lot of deferrals because of COVID and other situations, or just changes their mind and doesn't proceed with coming to Canada. So I wanted to just reconfirm to everybody that if you do change your plans, once you provide the bank your refusal or your cancellation of your application, your funds are immediately returned to you via wire transfer back to the original source. So any question about fund security, we can answer that and we can help you. Another common question is, can my relatives in Canada deposit the funds into my account once it's opened? So we have students in Pakistan, family members in Canada. So all deposits to the account must be made from the home country. So in this case, Pakistan, by the student or their legal guardian. That if your legal guardian in Pakistan wants to deposit it, that can be done. But again, Habib Canadian Bank, we're available to answer any questions about the proper facilitation of the funds to fund this account. And I'll just close my segment here by saying that our 3 branches, one of them which is in Brampton, very close to the Toronto airport, we've had many students who come to Canada and come right over to the bank. And I've had the pleasure of speaking to some of the students. And I wanted to just share that we are a very personable bank. We are here as a partner as students are considering Canada. And I want to close off by giving my sincere appreciation to Mr. Abdul Hamid and the Honorable Consulate for inviting us on this forum. Great initiative, great information and knowledge sharing, and we look forward to connecting with students as they consider their journey from Pakistan to Canada.
Thank you, Mr. Ali Khan. Very useful information. Now I invite Mr. Harun Chaudhry, Associate Vice President, University of Regina. Harun Chaudhry completed his Bachelor of Arts in Public Administration from the City University of New York and completed his Master's of Arts in Public Administration from University of Regina. He currently serves as Associate Vice President at the university and is a regulated international student immigration advisor. We have 2 regulated international student immigration advisors today. Mr. Harun has extensive experience working in the field of international education in Canada and the United States. Over to Mr. Harun Chaudhry.
Thank you so much, Mr. Abdul Hamid. First of all, I would like to thank Pakistan High Commission for organizing this, of course, Pakistan Consulate, because this is the issue that I personally have been discussing from last 5-6 years. I personally traveled to Ottawa and Pakistan multiple times. I also invited here in Regina, our Pakistan Consulate from Vancouver here a couple of times, just to discuss this particular issue. And one of the main topics that we discussed multiple times was the visa rejection, the situation. I know my colleagues, my other panelists have already discussed many things. I don't want to repeat all of those things again. That tells me that everybody is aware of this issue. And most importantly, our MP Ikra Khalid just mentioned a couple of things that gave me clear message. Unfortunately, sometimes what happened, due to our positions, our hands are tied and we cannot speak on many things publicly. But in fact, we know the reality and we know what is happening and we know the directive that go from the government to different visa offices. And most importantly, the point that Ms. Ikra Khalid mentioned about moving the visa office from Abu Dhabi to Pakistan, very important. What's the reason? Probably that we cannot discuss on public platform, but we know the fact. What's the reason? I can give you the facts and figures from my own institution that I sent to Pakistan High Commission in 2018, sometime in March. Probably Mr. Amir Khurram Rathore, you will be able to find my letter and the facts and figure from the University of Regina that I sent in March 2018 to that time High Commission. Because at University of Regina until 2015, until the time when the visa office was still in Islamabad, we were we had the number of Pakistani students at University of Regina in top 5 countries. That was around 200 students. As soon as visa office moved to Abu Dhabi from Islamabad, the visa approval rate started declining. All of a sudden, they started declining 50%. I went to visa office. I met with the trade commissioner in Islamabad. I went to Abu Dhabi to meet with the Canadian High Commission authorities. Of course, there were discussions that probably I'm unable to discuss here. Then again, we arranged several from my institution, several seminars in Pakistan, just with several academic institutions, with some of our science consultants. The reason I'm sharing this background because the facts we know, sometimes the reality. Okay, what the government can do, if in terms of awareness of SDS, honestly, students are smarter than us. They know SDS. They know the issue. They know how to apply for the visa. How we can guide them to use right channels, that is our responsibility. What we can do as an institution, we are playing our role. What government of Pakistan can do, that is probably something we can discuss today. But government of representative in parliament in Ottawa, they can do for advocacy for Pakistan. That is something probably we can also discuss today. First of all, when visa office moving back to Islamabad, that will solve the problem. Again, I mentioned the issues probably we cannot discuss. When we talk about the agents and educational consultant, one of the major issue was from Pakistan. The fraudulent acceptance letter was, hundreds of fraudulent acceptance letter was issued by many ghost agents. I can say it because we know the facts, we have the figure from our own institution. And I met with Foreign Office in Islamabad in 2019 September. My visit was facilitated by Dr. Tariq from Vancouver. Our trade commissioner was with me when we had this meeting. And I particularly discussed about this specific issue about the fraudulent letter. I gave the names of the ghost agent in Lahore, Islamabad, and Karachi. I'm not sure if there was anything done about that or not. That is something if government of Pakistan can help by working with the Canadian government and have a list of only signed agent of the from Canada and Pakistan, those who are vetted through our system, and raising the awareness among the students to use only those signed agents. That will solve the problem that I just mentioned about the fraudulent acceptance letter. That is the issue from the student side. There are issues from the IRCC side too, about the visa rejection. As Mr. Ikra mentioned about the rejection on the basis of you will not go back to your home country. two brothers are applying. One is getting the visa and one is not getting the visa, or just because of this reason. That gave me a clear message there is something else. A student who was funded by $90,000 from my own institution here with 3 supervisors for PhD program, visa was rejected 3 times. Then I wrote a personal letter and I asked my vice chancellor to write a letter to the visa office, and the visa was issued. $90,000 fully funded. How we can address like those issues? I think that is government of Pakistan need to work with IRCC, with government of Canada, and work very closely. Arrange educational fair in Islamabad or Karachi and Lahore by working with Canadian academic institution and IRCC and a trade office in Islamabad. If I was able to do as one institution, we signed the exchange agreement. Unfortunately, COVID hit and we were not able to receive any student due to the COVID. I'm sorry if I will be taking a little bit more time because I have like tons of information on this particular topic. And I'll be happy to join again if there is anything, and I can definitely come to Toronto or Ottawa to discuss on this particular topic. We signed the exchange agreement with University of Punjab, with LUMS, with IBA, Qaeda University. We have exchange agreement with these institutions. One of the main reasons was basically to help to educate our students there. And I totally disagree with people who are saying that Canada is not the favorite destination for the choice. It is one of the top. According to, we receive more than 800 admission applications in 1 year from Pakistan, but only 5 visas were issued. So there are chances. Unfortunately, there is a huge gap. 2015, visa issue started declining. 2018, when SDS was introduced, unfortunately, we saw more decline instead of increasing the number. So what's the issue? That is the government of Pakistan probably can work with IRCC more closely to find the reason and to address those factors. And that basically couple of factors I already mentioned. The sign agent from Canada and from Pakistan should highly discourage those people who are not providing the right document to students there, because sometimes students are innocent. They don't know how, like if the if Pakistan High Commission can work, as I mentioned before, with the trade office in Islamabad, they are willing to work. I spent 2 days with them and they traveled with me to Lahore and Islamabad in different offices. Our colleague from Canada there. If government of Pakistan can work more closely, organize these fair, work with academic institution here, province to province, arrange, give 1 month. There are 17 provinces and territory, for example. Just pick 10 top, work with province to province, and have an agreement with the institution. 2+2, for example, that is one of the top priority of every academic institution in Canada. We are moving toward hybrid and blended academic system. Old academic system will not work anymore. 2+2 will be one of the #1 academic, basically probably by after, I would not call it post-COVID, it's already started by 2024. Every institution have more bilateral, have more academic, the system that will be blended and hybrid, and 2+2 will be a priority. Government of Pakistan can facilitate these agreements, I think, by working with the institution, by working with the provinces, and I am happy to assist in any way I can in my province. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Mr. Harun, we should surely work on your offer for working with us on promoting educational linkages between institutions. Now I invite Dr. Amir Tayyib Saab. He is Director International Canada College. He is one of very few panelists who have done their PhD on Pakistan's education system. I have gone through his PhD thesis. It's just amazing read. Over to Dr. Amir Tayyib.
Very much. Hello, good morning, good evening. Hi, everybody. Very nice to be with you all. Thank you for the invite. I'm very, very pleased to be here. What I probably would like to do is address all the people who are our main audience, our students. I think practically focused on their needs would be perhaps the most beneficial. I'm cognizant we're not seeing them, but we know they're there. So let me focus my remarks on them.
Dr. Sir, would you speak a little loudly, sir?
Sorry about that. Is this better?
Yes.
Apologies.
Yes.
So I was just saying that I'll focus my comments on as much as possible practical elements that can be helpful for our students and the ones who are attending and here with us. So we actually, the Study Direct stream has been a great benefit ever since it was introduced. I spent quite a few years, actually, about a decade working in the government sector in Canada. Chaudhry Faisal Saab spoke about the British Council, and I worked for the Canadian arm for about 8 years, the EduCanada brand in the Global Affairs Canada Ministry. And there is a reluctance actually to participate in different events in Pakistan, fairs, marketing, and so on, British Council type events, because there are concerns sometimes that are raised on the part of Canadian educational institutions, and I represent one, about being in Pakistan. So I'll address that as well. And but here goes. My comments will be perhaps a bit rambling. International students in Pakistan should know that there is a plethora of opportunities in Canada. One big piece to remember is that your opportunities are not limited to a university education, but you can also work and study in a college environment. The vast number of study permits issued in Canada over the past couple of years have actually been at the college level. So the reality is that international students across the board in Canada are actually choosing to study at the college level, not at the university level, more and more. The vast majority of international students, especially from our competitor nations like for example, India, are focused on a college education. A college education can lead to a successful pathway to permanent residency, although that is not the focus of today's conversation. A 2-year study permit can lead to a 3-year postgraduate work permit. So maybe one big takeaway that I would like to propose sort of on a very practical level for the students at the table today is that colleges offer just as much, if not more, than universities in Canada. There is, I spent about, and thank you, Dr. and Mr. Abdul Hamid for the nice words about my thesis. I spent about 8 months in Pakistan doing my field research. I think I can say safely that there is this feeling among Pakistani students, parents, agents that universities are really the only way to go. That's perhaps a perception, but in the Canadian educational system, I would challenge that and say colleges are brilliant options for programs like business management, entrepreneurship, aviation, nursing, aeronautics. All of those, for example, are offered at multiple public colleges, many of whom names you've heard about, brand awareness is there. But note that across Canada in the 13 provinces, those colleges offer these brilliant programs, as do universities as well. So don't limit your options for the Pakistani students among us with us today. Don't limit your options that way. Please also consider cities outside the urban cores. Canada is more than Toronto, Canada is more than Montreal, and Canada is more than Vancouver. There are excellent colleges and universities, for example, the ones that Mr. Harun Chaudhry represents that are outside those cities, and you're able to study and work while you're in those cities as well. So those are important things to keep in mind. You can always move to another city later on if you like, but these are excellent cities to consider. Across Canada, and I worked in the education department for many years, our institutions are highly regulated, highly well-governed, highly well-funded. There are billions of dollars that are dispensed to public institutions across Canada, and that's all we're talking about because private institutions can't host international students. You need to be applying to a designated learning institution, of course. They are they're top-notch institutions across the board. So you can only go to a top-notch institution. And what I'm submitting to our students today is that no matter which institution you apply to in Canada, no matter where it's located, chances are it's an excellent institution that will offer you a pathway to permanent residency as well, and an education that is excellent to boot. So I've talked a little bit about cities, about the college versus university dynamic. I think the one other thing I'd like to note is that there is, and I started with this, there is a need for institutions and a need for the Canadian government to open, I think, their minds towards marketing in Pakistan more and more. A couple of years ago, I participated in an education expo in Lahore. It was a Dawn newspaper education expo in Lahore. There were only 2 Canadian institutions there at that time. Sometimes, and I think this is true, there is a perception, because I now represent a Canadian institution, there's a perception that it may not be as easy to travel or as safe, or there are concerns related about doing business in Pakistan. And of course, that is not true at all. There is very much a mandate for Canadian institutions to try and diversify their international education, international student populations, and welcoming more and more students from Pakistan can help us meet that goal. With regards to particularities of the application process, they're all doable, and my colleagues have mentioned them before. The GIC approach is important because from a Canadian government perspective, they have a flood of applications from a variety of countries and from a variety of banks. And if your GIC is not top-notch, it is an easy way for a Canadian border officer to issue a rejection. So don't go down that route. Make sure your GIC is top-notch. IELTS is not a barrier at all. For many regulated programs, it's an IELTS 6. It's very doable for a Pakistani student to achieve. If you fill out those 2 things, the IELTS, you meet the IELTS score, that minimum IELTS score, and the GIC requirement, you're, in my humble opinion, golden. All they have to do then is select a good institution in an environment you'd like to be in, and go ahead and study. With regards to COVID-19, actually student enrollments at our institution at least grew exponentially. COVID-19 was not a barrier because the Canadian government allowed studies online, and especially time to accrue for a postgraduate work permit. So our enrollments for international students studying online actually grew during the pandemic. And that is important for students to know that it was a possibility. Canada was open for business this whole time. And in our case, we grew by 50% in our international enrollments because the Canadian government allowed for online study. So that's something maybe to keep in mind. And our students could have been studying online, and 92% of our students are from one particular country. They were all studying online despite the challenges of time zone differences. I think the biggest sort of message I'd like to pass on, I'll end with this one, and I'm sorry for the rambling comments, is that students, the agencies on the side of the students, you have a wonderful opportunity in Canada. We hope you will think about it. You don't have to choose to work with any particular agency or consultant, although that can often really, really help. But you are, with the SDS program, the power is in your hands as a student to apply directly, as long as the paperwork is right. And you can be facilitated in that journey with the help of an educational consultant or an agent, but you don't have to be. That's the whole point of the SDS program from the Canadian government perspective. You apply directly and make it easier as long as those parameters are in place. So take the plunge, consider Canada. It is a wonderful, welcoming, diverse society. There is work that Canadian institutions, and I take first responsibility to do to further think about Pakistan in their promotion efforts. The Canadian government has steps to undertake, but we hope our students will consider Canada, and we are there to help and assist in awareness raising. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tayyab. Now I invite Dr. Saghir Munir Meher. He is Vice President, M&A Management Group of Consultants. He is author and researcher. He did his PhD from Northeastern University, Boston, in Education and Organizational Leadership. He has been a Senior Fellow, Higher Education Academy, UK. He has been a Fellow of the Royal Society of Arts and Commerce in UK. He has been a legal professional as well. He is life member of the District Bar Association Sialkot and member of the Lahore High Court Bar Association as well. Over to you, Dr. Saghir Munir. You will have to, yeah.
I'll unplug that. I've now recognized that my headphone doesn't work. So I need to change it soon. Thank you very much, Your Excellency, the High Commissioner and the Governor General as well. Because we've heard a lot about the problems that we've been facing, let me move on to more objective discussion of like how we can solve some of those problems and some of them which are actually not really problems. Let me just shift this discussion into 3 different levels. Universities, for example, to start with. Some of these arguments I've picked up and I'm going to carry them forward are actually coming from Mr. Shamas and Faisal, and of course from Dr. Chaudhry, Faisal as well. They were wonderful. Actually, their observation was spot on regarding some of these things. Let me begin by universities. For example, Shamas made a comment, which was that universities could have more partnership agreements with Pakistan on a practical level. Yes, they could be superficial as well, which happens for diplomatic reasons as well. But then we can have it on more practical levels. For example, last month we spent with a university that was willing to have its whole ESL program placed in Pakistan for Pakistani students. So by the time they reach Canada, they would have done almost 5 credit hours of their work within a program that they were to be admitted. Now that's a wonderful idea. So these kind of partnerships can solve some of the problems. Now we can pull these partnerships a little further. For example, let's say, for example, you can complete your whole semester while you're going through the process of applying for a visa within Pakistan. And I know there is a certain level of policy issue there as well with reference to immigration department. And I'm sure ICRA will take care of some of these issues that may raise at certain levels. But we have tried this experiment last year during COVID when students were studying one of their semesters in Pakistan. Now, that's another wonderful idea for progressing into their degree programs while they're in Pakistan. Assuming they do not get visa, then they apply again. This process does take time, but at least that time would be saved. In the worst of the worst case scenarios, they will have a full semester load already done with with transferable credits. What you can do while students are in Pakistan and are studying, let's say in a Canadian universities with an extended program, and since Dr. Amir is here, I'm being very reserved in my comments, and I hope Canador and Regina could pick up this idea and give a little bit of breathing space to Pakistani students in Pakistan doing their semester there. Let's say worst case, worst scenario, they do not get their visa and gets rejected again and gets rejected again. The Pakistani government can allow Pakistani universities to pick up those credit hours and put them in Pakistani universities from there. So they have actually not lost their chance, their space of studying as well. So they're not really, so one of the issues that we keep hearing from students is they're losing time, they're losing time, they're losing time. So this is something that could just safeguard their times. We have heard from 3-4 major universities saying that they can do that. They're willing to do that. But there are some hurdles, of course. There are institutes on the other side. There is an infrastructure development needed on the other side that can pick up some of these pieces. Now, there is a time difference that was there in comment. I've been going through some of the comments on the site as well. One of the major universities, Trent, for example, told us they can work with time difference. They can hire people who can sit through night and do the whole ESL program in Pakistan while the students are there. Now, that's at the university level. We can, for the sake of students, really create some of these things on the other side as well. And this would be one of the solutions, consider an opportunity as well. Now, we could take these partnerships to another level, where faculty exchange, research exchange, and a number of other programs could be introduced. So to build more, cordial, more friendly relationships between institutes. And I think Europe has done this experiment pretty nicely. Now, let me shift on to the student side. What we heard from the colleges, and I know you're going to hear this again and again, is the rejection reasons, rejection letters, and rejection letters. But we actually consulted with colleges asking, leaving aside all the discussion, I'm really thankful actually to Mr. Haroon for putting forward a lot, and I'm not going to get into that. One of the reasons that kept coming forward, and it was actually given to us as a matter of research by one of the major universities, was that the visa officers would say ties back home. See, students are intelligent. They know SDS. They know it's a mathematical process. There's a GIC, there's an admission letter, there's an IELTS score. There's this whole process there that's mathematical. And that's been designed so that you can get a visa if you have everything in place. One thing that kept coming forward was ties back home. Now, this is a question, of course, for Ikra to settle. For a student who's just finished his high school with no substantial experience, and it's by nature, by a natural idea, that's what he's going to have. The only tie back home is his parents. What we can do is to shift this idea from subjective to more objective. What constitutes ties back home? And this could be solved at that point. But more than that, I think there is a need for bigger partnerships to move the programs back home as well, for Canada or for Regina and many other colleges to start actually allowing students to study while they're in Pakistan, so they won't lose that time that they're going through. This is a major issue because our intake is usually 3 times a year. So if they miss this opportunity, they can shift into another. By the time they reach Canada, they would have already completed substantial credit hours and shift into next semesters, and they'll be happy doing it. There are some other challenges which we have not so far looked at, and I'm not going to take too much time, Your Excellency, trying to make it more objective. For example, one of the colleges told us that they filled up all their seats, but they did not have housing facilities for students. And housing being a major issue in Canada was not really solved. And another question sent back to Ms. Ikra. I think a lot of questions are going back to Ms. Ikra Khalid tonight. But there's another element. For example, Canada is like 4 hours drive from Mississauga or Toronto. And then there are many other colleges as well out there that student can choose. One of the other things that we did say, and I know Dr. Amr mentioned, was that students prefer going for a bachelor's and a master's and a PhD. And on the sideline in comments, I've been reading again and again, there are many diploma programs that students should also start looking at instead of just going for a bachelor's or a master's or a PhD. Now, those diploma programs are well designed. Please try to reconsider this idea that the only degrees available out there is just a bachelor's, is just a master's, or just a PhD. From amongst almost 200 DLIs which have PGWP programs available on their roster, there are millions of diplomas available where you can get admission, and they're all practical. They're designed to lead you towards the industry. They're designed to get you a job. They're designed to get you on your feet. So try finding that as an opportunity as well. I know there is another challenge that I think perhaps institutes are facing on our side, which is most of the students prefer going to bigger cities. So they will want to stay close to the DLIs which are in Ontario, Toronto, Mississauga. We see a very short influx of students going to DLIs that are far away from these cities. One of the major reasons is part-time jobs available for students, and to the max that they can only do 20 hours by law. They find that these opportunities are available more in cities. Some of these questions could be addressed by those DLIs which are far away from cities by providing students with some opportunities in-house, let's say, student working opportunities. could probably solve some of these issues. And just to keep it objective, I just would like to thank, of course, His Excellency. I would make one more comment. There's a lot going on. And for some of my friends who think that we're not doing enough, believe me, your Governor General has had like 1 million meetings last month with universities, colleges, with teachers, with people who are involved in it. And I think just within the scope of last 2 months, Mr. Abdul Hamid has had like 1 million meetings over just this specific student issues. So there is a lot going on. Rest assured, people are fighting for your rights, and rest assured they're doing a lot. With this, I yield. Thank you very much, Your Excellencies, and for all our participants.
Thank you. Now I invite Mr. Hassan Sharik, who holds an immigration practitioner diploma, as well as he's a regional recruitment manager of South and Southeast Asia of York University, Canada. He has done his LLB from University of Punjab. He did his Master of International Business from Australia. He is a strategic management professional with extensive experience in the field of international student recruitment, admission, processing, institutional linkages, and student affairs. He is also representing some organization of immigration practitioners. Over to Mr. Hassan Shah.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency, Mr. Abdul Hamid, and the High Commissioner, Mr. Amir Rathore, for this opportunity, and all the great discussion that we've had from professionals. So I actually right now I'm putting on 2 different hats. One is as the educational recruiter, and the second one as being an RCIC, which is the Regulated Canadian Immigration Consultant, and representing a not-for-profit association that we have of Pakistan origin RCICs based in Canada, which is ACPIC, Association of Canadian Pakistani Immigration Consultants. So these are RCICs. Now, we've spent a lot of time, so I'll keep it brief. Looking at the education perspective, first of all, what Mr. Faisal Mushtaq mentioned, that there is a lot of disconnect when it comes to the Canadian educational ecosystem in Pakistan. Having worked for the Australian higher education for many years as a recruiter, I know how aggressively they work, specifically for Pakistan and across the world. I'll just give an example. I don't know if Ikra's still here, but this is something that can be taken to her, that there is a brand called EduCanada. So this is the official brand where all Canadian institutions are promoted across the world. They have EduCanada fairs across the world, and unfortunately, we've not had one for I don't know how many years in Pakistan. Dr. Amir mentioned about the Dawn Education Expo. What happens is that our EduCanada Pakistan is actually done through the Dawn Education Expo, and we don't have an exclusive EduCanada fair happening. You don't have that fair, institutions don't travel. I'll just give you an example. I am of Pakistan origin. 4 years back when I joined York, and I asked my own managers as to who's looking after recruitment for Pakistan, and they said, it's not given to anybody. And I said, okay, give it to me. And the reason, and I asked them, what's the reason? Like York is in Toronto, it gets to have a lot of Pakistani applications. The reason is, if you have nectar, bees will follow. The big reason is there are applications, but they're rejected. Ultimately, when universities or institutions, they look at the final enrollment number coming from Pakistan, as Dr. Haroon mentioned, you may have 50 applications, you'll only end up with like 5 enrollments. So it doesn't really show up as high on the radar. And that's where the important aspect of visa processing comes. I know that we're not going into details of the immigration and all that, but there were a few discussions. So it is very important, as Dr. Amir mentioned, students are not required by law to use the services of anybody like an agent or an RCIC or a lawyer. They're not required. They can do it themselves. But keep in mind, Canadian study permit is a sub-route or a part of the Canadian immigration system. It's a very legal application. If you wish to use the services of somebody, then you have to make sure that you're using the services of a licensed professional who's licensed by the Canadian system. It's very important. I'll give you another example. Very recently, we had a student from Pakistan, from Karachi, who had some connection. The family had been settled in Middle East for long. The finances were there. The student came from the IB program of Beacon House school system, very good grades, applied for SDS, got rejected. Now, when we got that application, I talked with the father, and he said that, well, it was SDS. We were not supposed to provide any explanation letter or anything. And that's why I said, sir, you've missed out on a very important aspect of the study plan or explanation letter, because his impression was it was just these five things that I fulfilled. Now, this is where, if you are getting that help that you require, those professional services, because see, just writing a study plan is one thing, but as it was mentioned that, a lot of rejections are that you don't have ties to your home country. Now, that's a very, very legal term when you have to present it to a case officer. There are case laws that you can present that it should not just be rejected on these bases. So to tie these two things up, what has been happening is that institutions have lost interest in promoting in Pakistan because the final enrollment numbers are not all that high. They feel that there's not a lot of potential. If you go to Pakistan and you look at the service providers over there, a lot of times what happens is that if a service provider in Pakistan is offering multiple destinations, so say for instance they're promoting Australia and UK, which is the norm for education service providers in Pakistan. As a businessman, they look at this student walking into the office as to where is the higher probability of this student ending up being as an enrolled student, because that's when they are able to make their own business. And that's where a lot of bad word mouth has been given for Canada, that first there will be processing delays, highly likely you'll get rejected. Dr. Amir mentioned that brilliant colleges in Canada, but a lot of times education service providers in Pakistan would say that if you apply into a college in Canada, you're more than likely to get a visa rejection. Now, that's not true. You have to build that whole thing. So I'll just put these things first. I would say EduCanada brand needs to become active in Pakistan. That's a takeaway for, I think, Ikra. If she's not here, maybe this is something that can be discussed so that more and more institutions go in there, promote ourselves. Secondly, we need to make this very clear line that admission advising and study permit application advising are two different things. That gray area should not really put the applicants at a disadvantage. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Now, I would invite Ms. Nilofer Ahmed. She is PhD scholar, educational leadership and policy as a area. Nilofer Ahmed is a doctoral student specializing in educational leadership and policy in comparative international and development education in University of Toronto. She holds an MA from Brock University, besides having done MA and BA from eminent Pakistani University. Her career spans over 20 years of international transdisciplinary work with 10 years plus in development and education. Over to you, Nilofer.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum. I want to begin this short conversation by thanking Honorable Amir Rathore Saab and our very own Ikra Khalid for being here, and all the panelists who have contributed their thoughts. A lot has been said, so I won't indulge into the same conversation. But there are a few things which I really want to highlight today. It's interesting to know that all of us know where the gray areas are, and we all believe that there is a gap. There is a gap between Pakistani students and who want to take admission in Canadian universities, and then most of the time they fail. They fear, and they believe that there are certain lackings in their application. Probably they don't have the right kind of skills which are required to get an admission in Canadian universities. So the first thing that I want to highlight here is the building up of the linkages and changing the mindset of people who are in Pakistan trying to get admission here. One thing that I really like, which has been said by one of the panelists here, is the role of Higher Education Commission. I remember some years back when there was a problem in Pakistan where a lot of private universities were operating in Pakistan without due license. HEC, Higher Education Commission of Pakistan, used to publish advertisement warning parents and students that if they get admission into those universities, they won't be entitled to, towards the degree and all that. I think that this is the right time where the HEC should take a lead and act for those consultants or agents who mishandle students' applications. This is the first thing, that the parents and students should be made aware that they can reach to the universities on their own. Here in Canada, every university's department's chair are liable to answer any queries that come, no matter from where. So the first thing is that the students and their parents should be aware that they can reach to any university, and they can ask for any information. And since I have done my MAT from Pak University, and I know that their international office is very supportive when it comes to answering the questions and answering the queries. Each universities here in Canada have certain offices which deal with international students and students' application. The unfortunate part of this whole scenario is that Pakistani students are not considered as a potential, customer or clientage for Canadian university. And most of it is coming from marketing, marketing that even, Pakistani diaspora or Pakistani students who are studying here, create for other prospective Pakistani international students. Taking this opportunity that Rathore Saab is here and MP Iqra Khalid is here, I want to say that part of the problem is that Pakistani students do not have representation in academia. They don't have the desired representation in academic jobs and in academic publications. Therefore, Canadian universities do not recognize that our Pakistani students are, when they come here, they thrive, they make their own pathways, and they are equally competent to thrive in Canadian universities like other international students. This is one thing that I want to mention. And the other thing is that the need to change the mindset is also required, because I heard one of the panelists talking about Canadian government not supporting, Pakistan and in their academia, unlike, British Council, and how British universities are more functional in Pakistani society. I would say that this mindset needs to be changed, because IDRC, which is one of the primary grant issue, which primarily issues grants to developing countries, have been very supportive, and there are multiple bilateral agreements between Canadian and Pakistani government. And for example, the Pakistan's first online university, the Virtual University of Pakistan, was made possible by IDRC grant. So the only thing which is lacking here is that we don't have appropriate representation in these agencies, or like in academia, that can support the cause, that can make them aware that there is a chunk of international competent students who want to come here, who want to study here and become part of this social fabric. They want to contribute to the economic stability of Canada. And the best thing is that Canada always claims itself to be welcoming for immigrants, and immigrants strengthen Canadian economy. So why not, Pakistani students coming here and living here, and enjoying the Canadian life? The only thing is that we need to develop a linkage. We need to create that, we need to lessen that gap. I also want to highlight one more thing, that if HEC can take any part, or like if other agencies or like any other institution can take any lead into this, and while in providing appropriate information to Pakistani students in terms of the funding, grants, different bursaries or scholarships which are available for international students also. So one of the setback that comes to, whenever competent students, whenever they think of Canada, they think about it as a very expensive country to live in and meet the expenses. Whereas the fact is that besides the work study or work permit that international student get, there are different scholarship and bursaries and grants opportunities available for students. And I think it's primarily the responsibility of those agents or like those consultants who are dealing with international students. But also, if somewhere these resources can be provided, to international students who want to apply, and then they would know that these are the qualifications required, or these are the sets of skills which are required to qualify these scholarships. And while they are there and waiting for a response, they can build on those requirements. With this, I take leave now, and thank you very much for listening to me. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Nilofer Ahmed. We have received a message from Halima Tariq, who wrote that her SDS visa is stuck for the last 132 days. We request her to send an email to us. We should surely forward her query to the Global Affairs Canada. And now, before I invite our last speaker, Mr. Ali Muin Nawazish, I have to respond to another query that Dilawar Hussain Sab has said that this is an excellent initiative. I suggest to Pakistan High Commission Canada to prepare a document about SDS, required document and procedure, A to Z information, for example, guidelines. Now, this is a very good suggestion, Dilawar Hussain Sab. We had almost 2 years back prepared a summary. It was liked by Higher Education Commission or HEC so much that they displayed it on their website, and we shall surely update it. And I had forwarded it to almost 100 universities of Pakistan at that time. Perhaps our mistake was that our focus was on public universities at that time. Now we'll include private sector universities as well. And I must say that our last speaker, Mr. Ali Muin Nawazish, is a remarkable person. He is a PhD scholar, former youth ambassador. He did his Masters of Science in Journalism with honors from Columbia University. Earlier, he got Bachelor of Arts in Politics, Psychology, and Sociology with honors from University of Cambridge. He got President's Award for Pride of Performance, one of the highest civil honors in Pakistan. He is also a record holder for most number of A's in A levels in the world. He was included in Tech Juice 30 under 30 in 2014. He was included in 100 Pakistanis, the famous and influential, in 2014 and 15. He led the 1 million signature campaign for the right to a free and compulsory education in Pakistan in 2012. We had saved him as the final speaker, as the person who will conclude the discussion. Over to you, Mr. Ali Muin Nawazish. Please unmute yourself.
Yes, this happens more often now with Zoom. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here, and I really must commend the Consulate General of Pakistan in Toronto for holding this discussion. I think this is a very important topic which needs to be discussed. I'm new in Canada. I recently moved here, not as a student. And I think I immigrated here, but funnily enough, I'm doing my PhD from the UK right now, remote. So I think I can add a little to my own perspectives on Canadian education, and primarily what a student thinks and or what goes on through the mind of a student. A lot of good points have been talked about already, and I think the problem with being the last speaker is that you have to be very careful to not repeat what other people have so rightly pointed out. But I'll divide what I want to say in three distinct parts. One is in terms of why Canada is not as popular an education destination for Pakistani students as the UK or the US or other markets might be, and where the problems may lie and what things we can do to improve them. So the three distinct areas, I think one is the university bureaucracy, the other is the visa regime, and the third is the student perspective. So as a student, when you're applying to, so first of all, before we get into it, there are different types of students who enter the foreign education market. So we need to, first of all, differentiate what kinds of students are we getting, because not everyone has the same goals or this is not coming from the same background. So you have students who are graduating high school in Pakistan who've done A-levels, and they're looking to get into like the Ivy League or Oxbridge. That's one branding issue that I think Canadian universities have, that there's no alternative where someone, where a top grade getting student would be like, would not think of Canada as the first destination. They'd want to go to Oxbridge, they'd want to go to the Ivy League. So I think that's kind of, and Canadian universities are great. I think there's that branding problem that exists, and part of it's going to take time, and that acceptability is going to come. But you have, but one type of students are those who are like the A grade getters who are looking to get into the best of best. Then there are high school students who are looking for a foreign education at the bachelor's level. Then you have people who want to do maybe an MBA or a master's or top up their education. And then you have the PhD students who want to come for research, and so the different streams, different demographics, different needs. One thing that I think definitely on the university side needs to happen is a simpler application process. When you're applying to other countries, like there's one application for, if you're applying to the US, it's called the Common App. There's one application if you're applying anywhere in the UK, it's called UCAS. For Canada, you're navigating between what Ontario is doing, what British Columbia is doing, whatever, and that, as a student, so imagine yourself as an 18-year-old, which I was a decade ago, but imagine yourself as an 18-year-old. You're so overwhelmed with information. You're thinking, okay, I have to go abroad. You're looking at different countries, you're looking at different processes, and you naturally gravitate towards what seems as a simpler and more straightforward bureaucratic process. And you don't want to be navigating Ontario, you don't want to be navigating what BC is doing, and it just becomes overwhelming. Like I applied personally to the UK and the US when I was finishing high school, and one of the primary reasons that at that time we were not as inclined towards Canada was that it seemed more complicated from afar, and you don't want to have more things on your plate. For master's students and PhD students, I think it's different. You're in a different place. You kind of know what you want. Your goals are different. Maybe you want to get a job later on, or you want to, or the supervisor you want to work with. So that can be a little different. But yeah, for high school students, I think it's really important for there to be some clarity, some easiness in terms of bureaucracy. So even if you can't change the bureaucracy, but we can explain the process or make it simpler for them to understand, which can be important. The second thing also, I think, for students is that there's this negative perception about the visa process is very complicated. Like for students I speak to on social media, a lot of students contact me, and if you're going to, and it's not even a cost thing. I think if you're paying, you're going to the UK, you're going to pay up the same, more or less the same amount of money. You're going to the US, you're going to pay the same amount of money, maybe even more. So Canada, in some ways, is more cost effective because of that liberal policy of letting you work. But at the same time, there's a lot of uncertainty built into that process. If you look at the processing times on the website, sometimes it's hundreds of days. And I'll talk about the SDS in a bit. And I asked some students who were applying to Canada if they were applying for the SDS, and a lot of them said, yes, we are going to Canada, but we're not going through the SDS team. And I'll share their feedback shortly as well. But if I'm applying to the UK, I get my visa. If I pay for the priority service, I get it in 5 days. If I don't, it's 4 to 6 weeks. If I'm applying to the US, unless there's something wrong with my application or it goes into security processing, I show up for the interview in a few days, I'll get my visa stamped. So that uncertainty where people share these stories on Facebook, their whole Facebook groups dedicated to how long visas are taking, and so on and so forth, people become uncertain. I was talking to a student a few weeks ago who had gotten into a program in the University of Toronto for computer science. Excellent student, A grades, excellent potential, was able to pay for her own education, no problems at all. Got stuck with the visa and then ended up going to the UK because when term time started, her visa was not in place. And in terms of that, I asked that particular student, why didn't you go through the SDS scheme? And I think it's just people find not having, and this isn't talked about as much, but people aren't really comfortable just paying the fee for the first year upfront without having the visa in place. And for a lot of other places in the world, you're actually paying once you get there, like you get that 1 to 2 weeks time. And the whole GIC process as well. And I keep repeating it because for us as adults or as people who are running universities, we might not think it's that complicated, but you have to put yourself in the place of like an 18, 19-year-old student who's for the first time, they're coming out of high school, they're just Googling, they're looking at the internet, they're looking at how things work. It's just so much to be overwhelmed with. And I think that's a branding / bureaucratic simplification exercise that can really help Canada in that regard. And also in terms of even if the processes are laid out simpler. I applied for permanent residence 2 years ago, and I looked into the whole process online on the Government of Canada website, and again, it looks so overwhelming for someone who's trying to do it on his own. And then someone just simplified the process in a Facebook post in this Facebook group, and it seemed so much clearer and so much easier. And so many people I know, the same information, the same process, nothing changed. It's just how it was presented, how the steps were laid out for you in that Facebook post made it so much easier that a lot of people actually ended up from that Facebook group going for it. So I think that's also very important in terms of making the process simpler. And for a lot of students, their primary place of information is either their school or the university consultants that guide people for admissions. And I think that's where, like Faisal Mushtaq touched upon, you have the USCFP in Pakistan who advises people going to America. You have the British Council who holds these seminars and there are events happening. And we've seen Australia do a really big push, Australian universities do a really big push as well. And I think that kind of also needs to happen for Canada, for students to get familiar with the programs, familiar with the universities, and familiar with the whole process of going about it. My first time in Canada was when I landed here a year ago, and I honestly think there's so much potential and opportunity here for Pakistani students that it's actually sad that all of those opportunities are not being realized. I think students can have it much better in this country than they can in a lot of other places. And I really commend the High Commission for organizing this. And what I would suggest also is that maybe we can work with schools or work with the big Facebook groups who a lot of students are on, and maybe do one of these seminars with them, or do question and answer sessions with some of the great panelists that are here, so we can directly address students. students. And I keep saying this again, as a student, even we need to imagine being 18, 19-year-olds and how overwhelmed we would be if all of the admissions, the visa, and all these processes were in front of us. And even master students, like someone who's done a bachelor, it can become very overwhelming. And I think a part that we can play immediately, like we can't change the bureaucracy immediately, we can't change the visa regime immediately, but what we can immediately do, which will have a positive impact, is simplify information, access to that information, and let people know, okay, so if you're coming for a PhD, this is kind of what you want to be doing. If you're coming in for a master's, this is what you kind of want to be doing. If you're coming in for a bachelor's, this is what you want to be doing, and or a diploma. So we need to split it up. I think one of the things, we cannot group all students and assume that they have the same needs or they're coming from the same background. So I think this, I'll end it on that. I think this was a great seminar. I hope to see a lot more of these, and maybe we can share the recording in a public place that we can share with those Facebook groups or students, and spread them through their network so they can get help from it as well. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you very much. It was amazing presentation, very useful ideas. In fact, we have this discussion that we record everything that in all our webinars and post it in social media. So similarly, this webinar will also be posted, and we shall request everybody to disseminate it in different social media platforms. You're most welcome to do it. In 2 or 3 hours, it will be inshallah posted. I'm just thanking now, because we're already 26 minutes beyond our specified time, and I apologize for it as the person who was organizing it. I'm thankful to all esteemed speakers for their valuable contribution and for appraising the Pakistani community, Pakistani students, Pakistani parents of the huge benefits of the Canadian education system. It was certainly a very fruitful discussion. All the speakers in today's webinars shared insights into their relevant fields and challenges which need to be overcome for enhancing the number of students from Pakistan. We are planning the next webinar on education-related issues on 6 December 2021. And I repeat, Monday, 6 December 2021. And we are very excited that we have planned another galaxy of brilliant panelists for that session. Thank you very much again, everybody. Khuda Hafiz.